Hi there. I see we made it through the first week and we're all intact. That's wonderful news. I wanted to just make you a little brief introduction to this week's topic, which is ethics in research. And you hopefully have already read the chapter. I can tell from some of your Research Cafe posts that many of you already have done the readings for this week. We have readings in our chapter, and there are also readings on Blackboard. The readings include some dilemmas that you will use to speak to in your Research Cafe posts, which again for this week will be a little bit different than that they will be in future weeks. And there's also some additional articles on ethics that explore ethics in research a little more deeply. The main things I want to introduce you to pay special attention to this week as you read and you do your work is the different things that we do to protect the people that we are doing our research with and for. There was a time when we called those people subjects, but that is no longer the case. They are referred to as participants or respondents. So it's sort of funny that IRB instructions usually talk about protection of work with human, sometimes subjects, but that's not the appropriate term. It should be participants or respondents. So when you are writing your research proposals, be sure that you keep that terminology in mind. Other things that we do in research to protect the people with whom we do our research are some things that we do in terms of our data collection and management, like ensuring anonymity, confidentiality, making sure that the participants are aware of the, sorry, you can hear some lunchtime conversation. Make sure that the participants are aware of the purpose of the research and your role as the researcher. And the book talks about different times when those things might have to be, when those kinds of things are affected depending on the purpose of your research. But for the most part, we want our participants to be fully informed as to what they're going to be asked to do. We want them to understand that their participation is voluntary, and that we will do everything we can to keep anyone from being able to connect their responses to themselves. Okay, and the way we do those things are, first of all, we explain the nature, all of the potential risks, as well as the potential benefits to the respondents and to society for the research. And we ask participants to sign informed consents, which lay those things out. If it's an anonymous survey, we may not need informed consent, but anonymous and confidentiality are two different things, and they're frequently confused. Anonymity means that I, as the researcher, have no possible way of connecting your answer to you. For example, I'm about to launch a study, which many of you, if my email lists work right, will get a copy of the email. And those responses are completely anonymous. I'm sending those out to all faculty, staff, and students on the Denton campus. They're going out by email, and they answer their questions on an online internet survey that asks for no identifying information. So as the researcher, I will have no possible way to link responses to a respondent. No way. Now, in previous work I've done, I've had to get consent because of the different nature of the study, for example. And so, in order to do that, I had to have people fill out an informed consent form with their name on it. And then I assigned a code number. And I kept those consent forms stored somewhere differently, in a locked cabinet, somewhere away from the questionnaires that I received. I could link those people up if I wanted to. I could go find questionnaire number 32 and link it with consent form number 32 and know the name of the person. But I ensured my participants that I wouldn't do that, and that if I needed to, for whatever reason, I would be the only person who could identify them by their information. That's confidentiality. So anonymity means the researcher has no way of even linking the responses, even if they wanted to. Confidentiality means I might be able to identify the responses of a certain person, but I will not divulge them. So sometimes those get confused by people. I wanted to see if I could explain it a little further. I thought your book did a really good job, though. Another thing that we talk about a lot when we're talking about ethical considerations for working with human participants is the voluntary nature of their participation. All research participation should be... I'll watch your food. Okay, sorry. All research should be voluntary. So that means that people can refuse to participate without repercussion, and they can also stop participation at any time, whether because maybe they realize it's taking too much time, or the questions are becoming too sensitive or not something they feel comfortable answering. So that's another thing, the voluntary nature of participation. And if you are asked to write a consent form, those will be things you want to make sure you convey, especially when you're doing research with children. They don't have to come with you to play the game in the game room or whatever it may be. And they can stop whenever they want. Another thing that we talk about is no harm to participants, that we don't want to inflict harm on them in any way. In social research, oftentimes it's not going to be so much in a physical nature as it would be in medical or biological research, but it may be that might inflict psychological harm, whether it be cognitive dissonance or questioning past behaviors or things like that. We want to be really careful that we are not going to harm our participants, and if we do, we are making if our study could potentially harm them in some way, we make every effort to reduce and minimize that risk as we can. And the book does a good job of discussing that as well. Your book also talks about deception and how we analyze and report excuse me, our data. Sorry. Get a little, so we got coffee here. Sometimes we do have to deceive our subjects, our participants, in order to get meaningful data. And you can read in the text about that. It's a questionable activity and one that has to be thoroughly justified and a rationale provided to the Institutional Review Board if you are going to engage in deception. Some studies, especially medical research, do that when we're talking about testing new drugs. They'll give the placebo and the actual drug to test and see, and they don't want people to know which one is which. And then when we analyze and present our data, we have to be ethical in that too. We can't make up data. We can't massage the data. We can't act like a result we found was something we had hypothesized to begin with. We need to be honest and straightforward in that. And with that comes the topic of plagiarism, which you are doing a tutorial on this week as well. When we are presenting our information in our literature review and in our methodology, we are telling people that these are our own original ideas. And if we're not citing somebody else, that's what we're saying. That these are my words and my ideas. If you are taking other people's ideas, thoughts, or words, you're stealing, you're plagiarizing, and that's unethical. So it all sort of falls under the same heading. Your book talks a lot about institutional review boards. TWU has an institutional review board, and they review all research, whether it will be federally funded or not. So we are under that category of universities that go the extra mile a bit. We do require IRB approval on any research using human participants conducted through the university, not just federally funded projects. You have some interesting articles and research studies to read about this week, and I hope that they'll get you thinking about ethics. Ethics are something, as Babby tells us, that we don't often, sometimes we can't see ourselves when we're planning our study. We may not realize that the mere fact that we are asking someone to complete a questionnaire may be viewed as coercive because maybe I'm their boss, and if they say no, they think they'll get fired. You know, I might not think that because I might think I wouldn't do that, but our participants may not know that. So that's why having an institutional review board is very helpful. They can help us identify ethical issues that we may have overlooked, and Babby tells us that that's quite easy to do. Babby also goes on to talk about politics and social research. I encourage you to pay close attention to that as well. It is an important part of doing research, not only in terms of what kind of funding is available out there, but how our research is received and how it is used, especially for those of you who would like to do research on policy and policy initiatives. It'll be important for you to understand that, but important for everyone. So, welcome to week 2. I'm glad to have you here. If you can make week 1, then you are on the road to success in this class. That's the toughest week. That's the learning where to post and how to post and all that stuff. So I'm glad you're here. If you have any questions at all, go to the boards and post or send an email to Alan or myself. And we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here in week 2, and we look forward to seeing you in weeks to come. See you online. Let me know if you have any questions at all.